Again, thank you guys for joining us today. This is going to be our first, our kickoff of the 2021 construction season here at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. This is the first meeting we've done like this, where we do an overview of the entire season. So we'd love your feedback on it after the meeting. My name is Emily Kaiser, and I am going to be the presenter for the first part of the meeting. And I'm going to provide just really a big overview of what the plan is. I'm our communications manager here at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. After that, here's our agenda for today. Like I said, we'll do introductions. We're going to do an overview of the 2021 construction season. And then I'm just going to provide a couple reminders about scheduling, work zone safety, and show you how you can find out all the different ways we're trying to push information out about these projects and when they're going to happen and what's going to happen. And then we will go into a Q&A session. So if you've got questions about the projects that we mentioned today, or you've got questions about construction in general, I'll be joined by a panel of experts here at the Road Commission to answer your questions. So just a few housekeeping items before we dive right into the presentation. First, thank you again for joining us on Zoom. This meeting audio and video is being recorded, and it'll be posted to wcroads.org, which is our website. I'll show you parts of our website at the end of the presentation, but we'll post the recording of this. If you ever want to watch again, we'll post that to the website in the next couple of days. You will be asked, if you want to, during the Q&A period, to virtually raise your hand. And I'll provide instructions at that time as to how you can do that. You can ask your question verbally that way. And you can do that whether you're joining us from your touch-tone phone or from your computer today. And also, we do have chat enabled on this meeting today. So if you have questions that pop up in your head during the presentation, feel free to put those right in the chat. And then we will address those during the Q&A period. I'm going to try to stay focused on the presentation, so we aren't going to be answering questions right in chat, but we'll make sure that we address those chat questions in the end during our Q&A period. So with that, we will dive right in. Just a quick intro about the Road Commission. If you aren't familiar with who we are your county road agency. We are your county road experts. And so here in Washtenaw County, that means we're responsible for about 1,600 miles of county road. And those would be roads outside of city limits, city or village limits. And almost half of our system is unpaved. A lot of people don't realize how many miles of unpaved roads we have here in Washtenaw County, but we have nearly 800 miles of unpaved roads. We also are responsible for 126 bridges, which we're going to talk about later in the presentation. We are responsible for more than 2,500 culverts, which again, we're going to talk a little bit about later in the presentation. And believe it or not, we are responsible for more than 30,000 signs that are located across the county. You don't think about how many are out there, but there are literally thousands of signs that we are responsible for maintaining. In addition to all of that, we're also contracted, and have been since the 1940s, we're contracted to maintain nearly 600 lane miles of MDOT roads within Washtenaw County. So roads like US 23, I-94, M14, those are roads that are owned by the Michigan Department of Transportation, but they contract with the Washtenaw County Road Commission to provide routine maintenance out there. So that's why you'll see Road Commission trucks out on US 23 or on I-94 during a snowstorm, snow plowing, or pothole patching. And so we're contracted by MDOT to do that maintenance work. So with that little introduction, we're going to dive right into the 2021 construction season, and buckle up because we have a big season planned for the year. It's going to be a lot of work in a short period of time across the entire county. Before we really start talking about what the buckets of projects that we have planned, is I just want to make a couple differentiations between as needed maintenance, scheduled maintenance, and then actually the construction that we've got planned through projects. And we'll talk about how you can submit road requests for things like what you're seeing on the screen here. So the way that we look at things is if it is an as needed maintenance item, it's something that we do by request or by need. And always with the idea of if we have funding and the resources, be able to do it. And so things like pothole patching, grading requests if you live on an unpaved road, storm cleanup, if there is a bad windstorm, for example, we're the people going out and clearing trees off the road if they have fallen into the road during a storm. Road hazard removal. We often will get calls from our emergency responders or our partners in emergency response for tires dumped on the road or other hazards that are on the traveled portion of the roadway. And so our crews will go out as needed to remove those items. Same with like a tree across the road, same with that kind of storm cleanup. So we see that as needed maintenance, and that's things that we do year round. Incident response is another part of our as needed work, where we're out there on the on the Michigan State Department, the MDOT routes. If there is a major crash, we're helping to reroute traffic. And so that's part of our incident response and our support of the local emergency responders. We also, as I mentioned, have a lot of signs that we repair, signals that we maintain, and make sure that those things are in working order. So all of that is done as an as needed basis and as resources allow. There's a few other items that are seasonal that are done on a schedule. So often we will have people that call us and want to request these items. And what we tell them is that these are done on a schedule. And so we make our way, we do the same thing throughout the year and throughout the county. And so it's not really something that you can request, but it is something that we do on a scheduled basis. So for example, for dust control on our primary roads, which in general are our major roads, our busier roads, we're going to be doing dust control, which is an application of liquid brine to help reduce dust on these unpaved roads. We do that 3 times a year. And on our local roads, the less traveled roads, that frequency of application really depends on the township. That's a project that we partner with the townships to fund. There's also roadside mowing. And so, for example, on paved county roads, every paved county road is going to get mowed twice during the April through October, November-ish time period, during the grass growing period. Street sweeping, again, we do that twice per year on paved roads with curbs. Pavement markings is something that we try to repaint every 1 to 2 years on all of our roads, depending, and it really depends on the road of what the exact frequency is, but it is something that we do on a schedule. So then we've got that kind of maintenance activities, and then we have what we consider construction projects. And so I'm going to break down the overall plan for 2021 in each of these categories, and I'll talk a little bit about what these categories mean and what these different types of road construction projects are. But so we've got preservation, we've got resurfacing, reconstruction, bridges, intersections, safety projects, and then we have that other category. So like I said, I'm going to talk through each one of these, but we do have a big season planned that include projects in all of these different categories. So you're going to see a lot of orange cones out there, which we know is frustrating, but we also know is a mark of making improvements to our road system that will really help how it feels when it drives, and the safety and all of that good stuff when it comes to roads. So first I want to talk about preservation. So the preservation, when we talk about that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve pavement that is in good and fair condition. And so we're trying to do that with low cost projects that help to extend the life of the road. And so often we'll hear from residents that call and say, you're putting money into the wrong road. That road was already in good condition. And what our response is that we know it's in good condition. And what we want to do is we want to try to keep it in good condition for as long as possible. Roads, we can build good roads, but the best road in the world is like a living creature, and it really needs constant investment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the presentation, but it needs constant investment to keep in good condition. And so our preservation program is our way of trying to preserve roads that are in good or fair condition. And so part of our preservation program, we really have two pots of that program. And I'm talking about for paved road surfaces, for asphalt road surfaces. So we have crack sealing, and then we also have the seal coat program. So when we talk about crack sealing, this is like a cross section of what that will look like. It's exaggerated. It won't be that high, that big of a bump in the crack seal. But what you can see is that this is sealing small cracks that appear in asphalt after it's been placed after a couple of years. In the road world, the moisture and sunlight are major enemies of any road. And so trying to prevent moisture from getting down into the base of the road, sealing up those cracks is a really important way, and a low cost way that we can preserve and extend the life of a road that is already in good or fair condition. So that's crack sealing, and that's done, that's a pretty quick operation. It's a rolling operation. You may have seen it out in the world before, but that's not something that we'd close a road for. That's something that we're there for just a little bit, and our crews are rolling, they're moving along to do that work. Chip seal is a little bit different. So chip seal with a fog seal or seal coat, which is the overarching term, is a little different than crack seal. And again, this is designed only for roads that are in good or fair condition. And so what a chip seal is that it is, and again, this is a cross section, very zoomed in, but it is a very thin layer of liquid asphalt that we place on the roads. And I've got a picture of what that looks like on the next slide. And then we put a layer of small stones or chips that are on top of that so that you can drive on it right away. Those chips really act as what we call the wearing course. And so that's the part that you're going to drive on. And then a fog seal is another layer of that liquid asphalt, very thin, on top of the chips. It paints the road black. But what all of these things are doing is, even though they're very thin layers, is that they're acting as a sunscreen on our asphalt roads. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, sun and water are really big enemies of any good road. And so if we can seal that pavement and we can seal those cracks and put that nice layer of sunscreen on there, we really can extend the life of a freshly paved road, a road that is in good condition, and we can, in a cost-effective manner, help extend the life of that road for the benefit of everybody. So again, that chip seal is a very thin layer of liquid asphalt, and then a very thin layer of stones, and then another layer of liquid asphalt in that fog. That's the fog part of it. And we only started doing that last year. That's a newer addition to our program, our preservation program. So this picture shows you chip seal out in the wild. So this chip distributor that you can see here in the picture, the big yellow piece of equipment, that is putting the stones down across the entire road. You can see here between us and the chip spreader where the road is really shiny. That's where we've applied that thin layer of liquid asphalt. And now we are placing these chips on top of it. And so you can see that this is a rolling operation, but as you can see from this picture, we are taking up large parts of the road. There are a lot of our dump trucks behind, ready to load that or hook back up to that spreader and spread more chips. So this is usually it's done under like a daytime closure. It's not an extended closure. We don't need to close a road for days on end to do a chip seal, but it is something that can be a temporary inconvenience for people traveling along this way. And I'm going to talk about how we communicate about this so you know when we're coming to do a chip seal project. But it is something that we try to be in and out pretty quickly. But as you can see from this picture, we take up a lot of the road. And so we do try to close that road, or at least do lane closures ahead of that project to keep our employees safe, to keep you as motorists safe, and to let us get that work done as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. So that's the chip seal. What happens then is we let the chips kind of settle. We'll post everybody's favorite 35-mile-an-hour signs, advisory speed signs. We ask people to slow down as those chips are settling. And then once those chips have had a chance to kind of settle in, what we'll do is and we roll them immediately after. These large dump trucks go over them. We have rollers as well. Once the chips have settled, and the scheduling depends on weather and that kind of thing, but we'll come back with a sweeper and we'll sweep up the excess chips. And then once all of that's done, then we'll come back eventually and then we'll do a fog seal. And as I mentioned, this is a newer program for us, a newer feature to the preservation part of this, but a fog seal again is that another layer of liquid asphalt. And as you can see in this picture behind our distributor here, is that it really is painting that road black, and it's really sealing in the chips and really adding one more layer to help prevent any water from getting into the road. And we found it also provides a really nice improved road surface for traveling on, and it really makes the pavement markings pop. And so after we do a fog seal, then we'll come through and our contractor will place new pavement markings. And fog seal last year was the first year that we did this, and we really found great success, and they've been holding up well over the winter. But the pavement markings have been really performing well. So it's something that we are really pleased with and plan to do again in 2021. So in total, with our preservation program, we plan to chip seal and fog seal about 100 miles of road across the entire county. And then we also plan to crack seal about 10 miles of road. And so the funding for this comes from a variety of sources. And this is not a road funding introduction, but we'll talk a little bit about how some of these programs are funded. And then if you want to learn more about road funding, we could talk all day about it. We'd be happy to talk with you about it. But these preservation projects are funded with a variety of sources, including the county road millage. And the county road millage was approved by voters initially in 2016, and then it was renewed by Washtenaw County voters last summer. And that really allows us to invest about $4 million a year into our road system, which has made a really big impact. And we really appreciate the voters' support on that program. So one of the things that millage funds is our part of our preservation program, helping to protect our investments and keep our good roads in good condition. So the next kind of type of construction that we are going to do this summer, and some of it's already underway, is called resurfacing. And so that's a pretty broad bucket. And so under that umbrella or that bucket there's really three types of resurfacing that we're going to be doing this summer. So the first is called a mill and overlay. And that's for pavement, for asphalt that is in fair condition. And I'll show a picture of what that looks like, another cross section. So we've got mill and overlay. And then we have pulverize and overlay. And pulverize and overlay is for pavement that is in poor condition. And so we make our decisions based on the quality of, or the condition of the pavement at the time. And as you can imagine, a mill and overlay is much less expensive than a pulverize and overlay. A mill and overlay project costs about $170,000 a mile, whereas a pulverize and overlay costs about $350,000 per mile. Lastly, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we have about 800 miles of unpaved roads throughout Washtenaw County. And so another way that we are trying to help preserve those roads or to improve those roads is that we have limestone or gravel lifts, limestone gravel resurfacing. That's another type of treatment. And obviously that would be for unpaved roads. So first, this is a cross-section, an animation or a cartoon of what a mill looks like. And really what is important here is that a mill is a big piece of equipment that will grind away the first couple inches, that top layer of asphalt. And again, remember, a mill is for a road that's already in fair condition. And what it's doing is it's helping to put a fresh layer on that you can travel on and improving that travel layer. But it's not addressing the base of the road. It's not addressing any of the drainage underneath the road. It's simply helping to extend the life of that entire road system. So that's that mill. Again, it's just taking a few inches off the top of the asphalt or the paved surface. A pulverized project, again, this is a simplified illustration, but a pulverize and resurface project. And remember, these are for roads that are in poor condition, and this is a much more expensive endeavor. But this is where I like to say it's a big rototiller. It's obviously much bigger, it's much different than that, but the image is there. But what it does is that it pulverizes or it grinds up not only the remaining asphalt that's there on that surface, but also gets into the gravel base beneath that. And so it's really trying to help build a better road base. And so what we'll do is we'll pulverize the whole area. And then what we'll do is we will grade that and we will compact that so that we've got a much better road base to start with. This is not a full reconstruct, which I'll talk about next, but it is a pretty long lasting treatment and one that we do as much as we can. But as I mentioned, it is expensive. So once we've either done our mill or we've done our pulverized part of the project, then it's time to put new asphalt on. And so this picture is showing you an overlay on a milled surface. So this surface is getting one layer of asphalt. Like we said, we milled just the first layer out. We're putting a fresh one down. But as you can see, this is a big piece of equipment. It moves pretty slowly. This work, as I'll mention, is very weather dependent. We're paving when it's dry out. So this week we had plans to pave Monday and Tuesday on a project, and that got pushed back because of the weather, which is kind of the nature of the beast, especially in May. So this piece of equipment, again, this is an example of overlay. So if we're doing a pulverized project, we're going to put at least 2 layers of asphalt down and so through a process like this. So lastly, as I mentioned, we do also resurface, quote unquote, limestone, gravel, unpaved roads. And what that means is that is essentially putting a significant amount of gravel or limestone on that road and then grading it, compacting it, really shaping it into a good unpaved road. And sometimes that's anywhere from 6 inches or 8 inches of that material that's being put on. So you can see in this picture, this is right after the gravel or the limestone had been placed, and now we have our grader that's going in and shaping it. And it really is an art. These guys are skilled tacticians at this, but they're shaping the road. And in this big piece of equipment, actually, they can control the grader blade with like a joystick. It's pretty impressive. So it is a process that takes, it can take a while because they're trying to shape it. They have to haul in the stone, but it is something that we're doing right now on some unpaved roads in the western part of the county. So that's another type of resurfacing. So in total for our 2021 resurfacing program, we plan to resurface about 20 miles of asphalt road. That's a combination of mill and resurfacing and pulverize and resurfacing. And then we also plan to do about 20 miles of limestone or gravel lifts. So that's on those unpaved roads. And this is a very expensive, this is the bulk of our investment in this construction season, and it's funded with a variety of sources, including revenue from federal and state fuel taxes, the county road millage, as I mentioned. Our townships help fund a lot of these projects as well on our local road system. And so there's really a variety of sources that help fund this program. So next I want to talk about the reconstruction part of this. So reconstruction is you are removing pavement all the way to the base or to the sub base below, and you're correcting drainage issues, you're correcting any sub base problems, because again, getting water away from the road is really critical to building a good road. And this is really for roads that are in poor condition or when we are paving an unpaved road. As you can imagine, this is a very expensive endeavor. And so it's not something that we're able to do everywhere. It's not something that we're able to do a ton of each year, mileage wise. And it costs anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million per mile to do this type of work. And so again, it's not something that we can do a ton of, but we do try to do it when we can and when needed. And so here for 2021, we have one project that is a true reconstruct. And what that is we're going to be paving currently an unpaved road, Zeeb Road in Lodi Township. And this is actually phase 2 of a program. So we paved phase 1 of Zeeb Road in Lodi Township in 2019. And Zeeb Road is one of the last or one of our busiest unpaved primary, which means the busier roads that is unpaved. And so we are going to be investing some money into that this year. This project is funded by the county road millage, which I mentioned, and also with revenue from the state fuel tax. And so that project is going to begin in mid-June. That'll be a full closure. We're also going to be doing some work at the intersection of Pleasant Lake Road and Zeeb Road. We have done a whole separate track of communications just for this project. If you live in that area, hopefully you were able to attend our virtual public meeting about that a few weeks ago. But I'll show you where we've got a lot of information on this project. And on all of our big projects, we do targeted communications ahead of that work. And as I said, I'll mention it, or I'll talk about that later in the presentation. So that was reconstruct. Another way that we reconstruct often is with bridges. And so as I mentioned at the beginning, WCRC owns about 126 bridges throughout the county. Our bridges, just like everybody across the state, they are mandated to be inspected at least every 2 years. And then the treatments for these bridges range from deck preservation to a full replacement of that bridge. And a bridge, you may be asking, like, how do we have a lot of structures, like how do you define what is what? And in road terms, a road bridge is anything that has a 20-foot span or greater. And so in that category, that's where we have 126 structures. So in 2021, as you can imagine, replacing a bridge that is in need of full replacement is very expensive. And so we work very hard. Our engineers are skilled at putting together grant applications. And we've been very successful over the last few years of getting grants from the state to replace bridges that are in poor condition. And so in 2021, we have 2 bridges planned for full replacement. So Dennison Road Bridge in York Township, that's actually already underway. The closure started in early March. And then we have the Gettys Road Bridge in Superior Township, and that project will start in late June, early July. Again, just like Zeeb Road, these are big projects, closures that are going to last a long time. And so we've already done additional communications specifically to these projects. So if you have questions about these specific projects, we can get you in touch with those project managers, and we've got a lot of information about this work on our website. And as I mentioned, these projects are funded with a bridge grant from the state. So the money that we receive can only be spent on these projects because it was part of a grant program. So we apply every year, and the program is like 3 or 4 years out. It takes a lot of planning and coordination, but it's been a really successful way that we've been able to replace some of our structures that are very expensive to replace and challenging to replace if it was just without that grant program. So in addition to full replacements, we also plan to do some rehabilitation, some preservation, maintenance on bridges, on 4 other bridges across the county. So we've got work planned on Bridge Road in Ypsilanti Township. We've got preservation work planned on East Delhi and on the Maple Foster Road Bridge. And we also have work that just started this week on Mass Road, the bridge over the Huron River, just in between Dexter, on the border of the city of Dexter and Webster Township. The first 3 bridges on this list, Bridge Road, East Delhi, and Maple Foster, those are all going to be done under a full closure. The work on Mass Road is done with a lane closure. And so 2-way traffic is maintained through a temporary traffic signal on that bridge. And as I mentioned, just like with replacements, this work is being funded with bridge grants from the state, and we're also putting some county road millage money into these projects. So in addition to bridges, we have a lot of other structures that help to move water underneath roads. And as I've mentioned a couple times in this presentation, you'll hear water and roads go hand in hand, and it's something that we're responsible for in most areas to try to make sure we're responsible for handling the water from the road and getting that water off the road as quickly as we can. And so culverts, or you can see sometimes those big pipes that go underneath a road, we have a lot of those across the county. We have more than 2,000 of them in various conditions throughout the county. And we started an inspection program over the last, I think about 5 years ago, where the larger structures are starting to be inspected every 4 years. And you can see here, this is a pretty large structure that we replaced a couple years ago in this picture, and it takes a crew to do it, and our own crew do it in a lot of cases, but it's a big project. So even though it's not a bridge, it still is a really important structure. So in 2020 and 2021, we plan to replace 3 big culverts in addition to a lot of other smaller ones. And so the smaller culverts take a day or 2 or less to replace. And so we have a lot of those planned. We didn't want to put all of those on the slides here, but we have 3 big ones that are planned for later this construction season. And so at Hitchingham Road in Augusta Township, that structure has been closed. And so we're all anxious to get that one started so we can reopen that area. McCrone Road in Augusta Township, and then Wagner Road, there's a couple culverts that we're replacing in Scioto Township. So beyond structures, we're also responsible for the intersections of roads. As we said, we've got a lot of intersections because we've got a lot of roads. And so we try to address intersections as needed and when funding allows. The funding is the big part there, because as you can imagine, building new infrastructure at an intersection, moving an intersection from a 4-way stop to a roundabout or a traffic signal, and it needs a lot of investment, a lot of money. And so we can only do these when funding allows. And our treatments at intersections range from roundabouts to traffic signals to stop signs. There's a variety of tools, and there's a lot of different warrants or rules that we need to follow from a design guide of what intersection qualifies for what type of treatment. So we have to kind of think about the design side, the engineering side of it, and then also look at what funding is available. And so in 2021, as many of you may know, we at the Washtenaw County Road Commission are big fans of roundabouts. We have successfully built a number of roundabouts. I think our number is close to 30 throughout the county, including some on MDOT routes and in cities and villages. But roundabouts really provide it's a great tool in our toolbox. And it's not the right fit for every intersection, but it's a great fit for a lot of intersections. And so we're going to build 1 single lane roundabout in 2021. and that's at the intersection of Liberty Road and Zeeb Road in Scioto Township. And so this picture just shows what the intersection looks like right now. It's a four-way stop intersection. So once we're done with this project, it'll be a single lane roundabout. And this is going to be funded with revenue from the state fuel tax, and there's a developer contribution in this project, which is something that happens in certain projects. And so this work will start later this summer. And again, we've done a separate communications. We've got a project webpage set up for this project because it will be an extended closure. Roundabouts typically take 6 to 8 weeks to build if we get good weather to do so. So that'll be a longer closure as well. In addition to roundabouts, we also have a lot of traffic signals around the county. And so we do 3 types of projects to try to improve those and upgrade those. And so I'm going to talk through a couple of our traffic signal project plans. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got a panel of experts of our internal staff here that can answer questions if you've got them at the end of the presentation. And so we have a few new signals that'll be going in 2021. We also are going to be upgrading some existing signals. And then we're also going to be installing some flashing beacons, and I'll show a picture of what that looks like. But these projects are funded from a variety of sources, including revenue from federal and state fuel taxes, the county road millage, and some of our townships as well. So in 2021, we have 2 new traffic signals going in. So one at Pittsfield Township, which is at the intersection of Textile Road and Lore Road. And then one at the intersection of Bemis Road and Carpenter Road, and that is in York Township. And then we're also going to be upgrading a few signals as well. And so we've got them listed here. There's one in Ann Arbor Township at Dixboro Road and Plymouth Road, one at Pittsfield Township, or 2 at Pittsfield Township on Textile and Maple, and then Oak Valley Drive at Ann Arbor Saline Road. That work on Oak Valley Drive is underway. I think they're hopefully going to be paving this week on the area that they've been working on. In addition, we've got one at Dexter Ann Arbor Road and Wagner Road in Scioto Township. And so upgraded signals what the upgrade can be really depends. Some of them are switching to a box span, and I've got a picture of that on the slide here. Some are switching to a mast arm configuration. And so it just depends on each of these projects, but there is different types of upgrades that we have. Another type of upgrade for a signal, and this is something that we are trying to implement where it is appropriate and where it meets our engineering standards and those warrants that are required, but is installing, when we can, a flashing yellow arrow left turn phase. And so what that is you can see from this graphic here, is that would be adding that flashing yellow phase of a signal where you can proceed with a left turn after yielding to any oncoming traffic. So you wouldn't have to wait for the green arrow. It would give you a chance, if you've got a gap, that you could go. Again, this is not appropriate or warranted for every traffic signal out there with left turn arrow, but it is something that we are trying to place when we can and evaluate an intersection and see if it's appropriate. So that's part of the upgrade in some of these areas as well. So in addition, as I mentioned, we're also going to be installing some flashing beacons. So that's those single lights above a 4-way stop intersection or a 2-way stop intersection that, again, is meant to be another visual reminder to the motorists that they're coming to an intersection and they need to do something. So we'll be installing 4 of those, actually, one in Freedom Township at Schneider and Bethel Church, 2 in Lodi Township, as I mentioned, at Pleasant Lake Road and Zeeb Road. That's a part of that Zeeb Road paving project. And then 1 at the intersection of Wagner Road and Waters Road. And then lastly, 1 at the intersection of Martz Road and McKean Road in Ypsilanti Township. So in addition to all these traffic signal projects, we also have some miscellaneous safety projects. So as I mentioned, our staff, road funding, again, we could talk about it all day long, but road funding is something that is obviously a challenge in Michigan. And so Washtenaw County Road Commission staff work really hard to apply for grants and to seek out opportunities where we can bring additional funding into the county when appropriate. And so we have been very successful over the last few years of getting safety grants to address needs that we identify in our county system. And so these are addressed as needed and when funding allows. The treatments can really range from a variety of things, from center left turn lane construction to enhanced pavement markings. It's really a variety of different treatments. And so in 2021, we have 2 big safety projects going on. One is along Wagner Road in Lodi and Scioto Township. And that one involves a couple different elements and a few things I've already talked about. So we've done a separate communications outreach that to residents and directly impacted by that. We had a public meeting in a couple weeks ago on that one as well. And then also at the intersection of Hewitt Road and Harding Avenue in Ypsilanti Township. And those are both projects that we received safety funding for from federal and state safety grants, and also from support from our townships to do these projects. In addition, speaking of partnerships, we partner with a lot of local entities here, townships and others, Parks Commission, that kind of thing, to help them build non-motorized facilities throughout the county as well. And so we are partnering with on these 4 different projects throughout the county this year. So the Dixboro Road Pathway along in Ann Arbor Township, that is actually underway right now. They're doing storm sewer installation right now. The Huron River Drive segment D3, this is a part of the Border to Border Trail in Scioto Township. This section is in Scioto Township. Platte Road Greenway in Pittsfield Township, and also the Prospect Road Pathway in Superior Township. And these are funded with a variety of sources. Again, townships are big partners, federal, state grants, and the Road Commission comes in to help administer those federal or state dollars. Lastly, in my other category, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how these projects, how we decide which projects are selected each year, is that we have guardrails. So we're doing new and replacement guardrail in a couple different areas across the county as it's a part of our county wide guardrail program. And then we also have a lot of permitted work going on in the area. Last year with the pandemic was a weird one, to say the least. And so it's interesting to see what type of development is happening, what type of construction is happening in the world right now, and in all of the implications of that. But what that means is that there's also a lot of utility work being done right now. There's a lot of new development going in some areas. And so the Road Commission is responsible for managing that work in the right of way. And so a utility, for example, if they want to do a project on their facilities in the road right of way, which is along the roadside, then they work with us to provide permit. And then we try to provide notification ahead of that work. But there's a lot of permitted work planned this year throughout the entire county. So that's kind of a very high level overview of what we have planned in 2021. Again, I don't expect any of you to memorize that, but I'm going to show you shortly of how you can find that information on our website. We're really working hard to push that out there and provide as much information to you as possible. But I just want to first touch on, how are these projects selected? We talk to residents all the time who want to have their road fixed for obvious reasons. And so how do we pick which roads we're going to fix each year? And that, again, is a conversation that could take place. We could talk all day about that. But the really short story is that, we try to focus on that preventative maintenance. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to apply the right fix at the right time in the right place. And so a good analogy for that is just like what you do to try to keep your car driving if you have a car. And so, for example, you're not going to wait until the engine dies, the engine fails for you to change the oil. You are changing the oil every 3,000 miles or whatever your car says, so that you're trying to provide that maintenance. You're changing your tires every so often. You're doing all of the maintenance, and that will help to make your car last as long as possible. If you were to just drive it without any maintenance and just drive it till it dies, it's not going to last as long as if you were doing all of the maintenance. So when it comes back to roads, it's the same thing. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to apply a mix of fixes. We're trying to keep roads that are in good condition in good condition. We're trying to move some of those roads that are in fair condition back up to good or preserve them in fair. And then we are trying to address, because we do still have a lot of roads that are in that poor category, we're trying to move those poor back up to the good. And as we talked about, that move from poor to good is very expensive. And so we can't do a ton of that each year, but we do try to tick off a few miles each year so that we can help to overall improve the condition of our system. But we absolutely understand, and we definitely know that our roads have a long way to go. We've made a lot of progress in our road condition thanks to practices like this and increases in road funding at the state and local level, but we know that there's a long way to go. Absolutely. Michigan has dug a very deep hole that we are trying to dig ourselves out of. So with that, I just have a couple of notes here that I want to mention about scheduling, and then we're going to go into our Q&A period after I show you our website. But scheduling for construction is chaotic, and we understand the frustration of that. We feel it too, but I think it's helpful to just kind of understand some of the constraints that we're dealing with as a road agency. So typically in Michigan, the construction season for roads is typically mid-April through mid-November, and that is totally weather dependent. What we need is, one, we need asphalt plants to open, and so those most of those plants are only going to open when we've got consistent warmer temperatures. And then we also need road bases to be dry. We obviously don't want the frost out of the road. We want the road bases to be dry and that consistent warmer temperatures. We also, in many cases, and in a lot of our projects, we're subject to environmental restrictions that say you can't do work until and after this date, or you can't do work before this, that have very strict parameters on when we can't do work. And that is to protect all sorts of different things, but you know, there's endangered bat species that we have restrictions related to, spawning fish that we have restrictions related to. So we're trying to juggle all of those things. You know, we do have off-season projects that do occur, but those present a different set of challenges. And so when we talk about the construction season, it's really that mid-April through mid-November. And so I just want to mention too, you know, often we hear, especially this year where we had a beautiful late March, early April. And we heard from a lot of people of like, why are you not out here? Why aren't you doing this project? Why aren't you paving? Why aren't you doing this? And there are all sorts of seasonal restrictions, and we never know in Michigan what kind of spring we're going to have. And so asphalt plants didn't open until about a week or so ago. So we couldn't do any paving. So we didn't want to start any like tearing up roads until we could put them back together. So there's just a lot of restrictions that I think the general public don't understand, which is, it's our job to try to understand that. In addition, we have a lot of weather issues. So construction activities, for the most part, there's a few exceptions, are very, very weather dependent. So as I mentioned, you know, rain like we had earlier this week, that's going to delay paving. So me as the communications manager, I can lay out a perfect schedule. I can communicate a perfectly good looking schedule. And then the minute that it starts raining, and we know in Michigan that it can rain on days we don't think it is, and vice versa, but that's going to delay paving and it's going to push everything back. And so for paving and our seal coat programs in particular, those are very, very weather sensitive. Lastly, you know, it is complicated. So as I mentioned, there's just a lot of moving parts that we're trying to work around. And so there's environmental considerations, there's utilities that sometimes have to relocate ahead of some of our big projects. There's coordination with other projects. We understand that as a motorist, nothing worse is trying to detour. There's nothing worse than trying to have to detour from one project and be thrown into another project and run into another work zone. And so we try to coordinate that, but that does happen. We also have specialized equipment that can break down. And so then that would push back some of our scheduling. And then obviously we also are all dealing with COVID. So the Road Commission, we are working differently and our contractors are working differently, but we're still trying to conduct the work. But that's kind of the big unknown in last year's season, which we were able to complete very successfully, and in this season. Hopefully next year when we do this presentation, we don't have to even think about COVID, but we'll see what it looks like next year. So lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about work zone safety, and then we'll dive into the website, and then we'll go into our Q&A period. But work zone safety is something that is really near and dear to all of our hearts, for obvious reasons, I would think, here at the Road Commission. But I think it's really important for the public to understand that last year in Michigan, we saw some really wild driving. Across the state, there were 5 road workers that were killed in Michigan work zones last year. There are actually 2 killed contractor workers killed on I-94 in Washtenaw County last year. I think both of those gentlemen that were killed were in their early 20s. It was just horrible. And there are so many more near misses. In 2020, our own employees, we had 3 brushes where our employees got hit by a mirror as a car goes speeding by a work zone. We've had multiple crashes where people have driven into our vehicles out on the roadway. We've had multiple intrusions into the work zone. And that's what I was going to show here, is we've had people that have ignored multiple barricades. This van drove off into a road that had been, the pavement had been removed, and then they abandoned it. It was just stranded. We've had last year at Ann Arbor Saline Road and Wagner Road, we had a a vehicle, we think with a trailer on it, go around multiple road closure barricades and pieces of equipment at night and damage, I think, about $20,000 worth of concrete. And then we even had, this is a box truck that went through multiple barricades again and hit a contracted worker's truck. You can see it in the background. The box truck flipped. I don't know how, but no one was injured. So we've gotten very lucky that our employees haven't been injured, that these drivers haven't been injured on our projects, but we've seen some really unsafe behavior. And so we really ask for everybody's help and really to slow down, to avoid the work zones if you can, and really to help us work safe and to save everybody, save lives for everybody. It's not just about our safety, it's also about the safety of you as traveling through these work zones. You know, we have this out here. I think that this is a really relevant meme, if it can be. You know, I think we've all done it, where you see a sign and you're like, well, I'm not sure that applies to me. You know, maybe I can get to where I need to go in the closures after that. I am here to say that if you are wondering if that road sign applies to you, it applies to you. If you're a pedestrian, if you're a bicyclist, these signs apply to you. If all of these things that I showed you back here, all of these things could have been prevented if people would follow the signs. And so those signs apply to you, again, whether you're a motorist, whether you're a pedestrian, whether you are a bicyclist. If you live within that work zone, we will help you get to your homes and we will provide access to your homes, absolutely. But if you do not live on that road segment, you need to stay out of the work zone during that closure. And that's, again, for everybody's safety. So with that, I just want to talk briefly here, and then we'll go to our Q&A period, but about how the heck you can find out. We've got a ton of work coming up. How do you find out when we're going to be doing work near you and when we're going to be doing work on different projects? So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to talk through the different ways you can do it, and then I'm going to show you how you can find it on our website. But we have a website, it's at wcroads.org, and we have a large amount of information out there for you that we are updating daily to try to provide you information about where we're working, what projects, what the status is of a project, answer some of those frequently asked questions. And so we've got a lot of resources for the public on our website. You can also submit a work request right through our website for a pothole request, for a grading request. You can submit for a permit. You can apply for a permit and receive your permit electronically. You can subscribe, like I'll show you, for road updates, that you can get updates right to your email about work that we have in your area. So this is just a screenshot from the website. Again, I'm going to show you this in a minute, but this is a screenshot, an overview. Each of these road segments represent our current projects for 2021. I talked through a lot of these, but there are detailed project pages on each of these segments, or the dots mark an intersection or a point project. So you can click through and learn all about all these different projects. This is just a small swath of our projects. These are the largest projects that get a project page. We have lots of other work that's being done in partnership with our townships on our local road system that aren't reflected in this map because there are just so many. And so we have a ton of work planned this year. What we try to do to try to help the public and officials and ourselves know what the plan is for the next week is we put together a weekly roadwork schedule. So that's published every Thursday on our website, and it includes the major projects that we think are going to impact traffic. Keeping in mind all of those things, like I mentioned, about how it's complicated and schedules can change very quickly, we do our best to try to get that information out to the public. And so, as I mentioned, it's posted to the website. You can subscribe to receive this schedule via email. It also is posted to our social media channels where you can find that information. I have a screenshot here. Again, I'm going to show you where this is on the website. This is our one of the pages from our weekly roadwork schedule for this current week that we're in. And so you can see we put the township, we put the location, impact to traffic, whether there's a detour map, and who you can contact if you have questions. You can also always call us. This is our main phone number, our direct line. And right now we are in our summer schedule. So we are open Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And due to COVID, right now our office is currently open by appointment only. And so you can call us, you can email us, and we have staff available during those hours to assist you. We also have an app and a service request system called the WCRC Fix It. And so what you can do is you can download the app. It's in your app store if you're an Apple or an Android user, or you can submit a request right on the website. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. We also, if you're ever interested, you can join our virtual board meetings. Again, we've been meeting virtually for about a year now due to the pandemic. Once we are meeting, we will eventually get to a hybrid model where we have a virtual component where you can participate virtually in these meetings or in person. But right now we're still in a virtual, 100% virtual format. And so our board meets the first and third Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. And there's information on our website as to how to join. We also have a new virtual, it's essentially virtual office hours called Chat with the Road Commission. And that's every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. You can RSVP if you want to, but you don't have to. And you can just drop into that Zoom session and talk with Road Commission leadership. It's just a more informal way to talk with our road commissioners and our leadership team. And just you can bring up any topic. We've had a variety of discussions with people who just drop in and want to know what's going on with the Road Commission. So that's a more informal way. Again, that's every Wednesday from noon until 1 p.m. And it's just an open session. You can drop in and stay as long as you want. So with that, let me pause my screen share here for a second. And I'm going to go to I'm going to show you our website. Okay. So this is wcroads.org. And what this is this again is we do a lot of work to try to provide as much information. We are updating the site daily, especially during construction season, of what's going on. So I'm going to show you a couple features of this, and then I really encourage you to explore this. And if you've got questions, give us a call, but we've got a lot of information on our website. And so the first thing I want to show you is our current projects map. So if you go here, either at our roadwork and construction at the top, there's current projects here, or this will take you to the same place, but you can scroll down and you can go to our interactive map. Over here on the left, we do individual road advisories for, for example, we have lane restrictions on Dixboro Road, and we've got those posted, and that's a running list here. And so let's go to the current projects map first. And so here is our current projects map. I showed a screenshot on the presentation earlier, but this has all of our different projects that are major projects that we have planned for 2021. And so each of these road segments is a project page. You can click on it and you can click more info to go there. You can go like here, we've got safety improvements. Miller Road Bridge is a project that carried over from last year. So we can see there's a project page connected to that map. And then on this project page, we've got a lot of information here. Miller Road's a big project, so we've had a lot of different updates on it. We've got that project manager's contact information right here. We've got some helpful links from various public meetings, the detour map. If you want to receive email updates about this project, you can click right here to the subscribe to project updates and subscribe. And so there's a lot of information. And we have a project page for all of our major projects, and then we offer project updates for the biggest projects that are on the list each year. So that's that current project map. If you're not a map person, but you're more of a list person, we've got all the projects are the same down here. So you can find the project page that way as well. I also will go back to the home page. I just want to show, we've got a couple other features. So I mentioned that you can submit a road request right to us through our website. Again, you can always call us, or you can download the WCRC Fix It app. But this is how you could report a road issue. And so right here, it allows you to put your address in, and then you can, once you put your address, I'll show you, we'll put the Road Commission's main address. Once you confirm your location, you can put in all sorts of different types of requests to the Road Commission, and then that automatically gets routed to the person that's in charge of that area. You can add photos. There's instructions down here as to how you could do that. Or again, like I mentioned, that you could put in a request through the WCRC app if you want to download that to your phone. We'll go back here to the home page. Also, we've got services, as I mentioned, like applying for permits. You can apply for all various types of permits through our website. You can also, as I mentioned, you can subscribe to receive updates. So if you click here, this is our web form. So you just would put your email address, your name, zip code. And then, as I mentioned, we offer a couple different types of emails. So if you're interested in receiving, let's say you live in Freedom Township and you want to receive updates when we've got work in Freedom Township, You would just check that box, and then you would only get emails about when we've got lane restrictions, road work coming up in Freedom Township, or impacts to traffic in Freedom Township. We also, if you want to go down here, in addition, you can subscribe to receive, we do a newsletter, electronic newsletter. We do that weekly roadwork schedule, like I mentioned. You could subscribe to receive that. We put out alerts on weight restrictions or on bridge closures. And then we also do project-specific update emails on the biggest projects of the year. And so these are the projects that we're doing updates on for 2021. So you can subscribe to receive updates there. So you can subscribe to receive everything or just one or two things. It's totally up to you as whatever you're interested in. So we also, there's, like I said, a lot of more information on our website. We've got a really robust FAQ section. You can find out more about our board, which is our governing board. You can learn how to join their virtual meetings, learn about Chat with the Road Commission. There's just a lot of information out there that we try to provide to the public and as a resource to you. So with that, let me get back to the presentation, and then we will go into our Q&A period. It looks like we might have some questions coming in through chat too, so which is great. So again, thank you for listening. I know that was a broad overview, but we can go right into our Q&A period. I first want to introduce our panel of experts here that have joined me. So we've got Cheryl Siddle, who is our managing director. We also have Jim Harmon here, who is our director of operations. We have Matt McDonnell, who's our county highway engineer and director of engineering. And we also have Brent Schlack, who's our assistant director of engineering. And so with that, if you want to ask questions, I'm going to pull up chat. So we'll pull out, we'll ask questions that came out in chat too. I'll read those off. And then, but if you want to ask a question verbally, here are instructions how you can do that. And so if you are joining us from your computer or smartphone, first you want to click join audio, which it looks like everybody has. And then you want to click reactions at the bottom of the screen. It may be participants. It depends on which version of Zoom you have. They've recently updated it, but you want looking for that raise hand feature, either under reactions or participants. And then if you're joining us from your touch tone phone, you want to dial *9. All right, so with that, if you want to raise your hand, feel free to do so now. Until we have a raised hand, I'll start working through some of the chat questions. Oh, actually, we've got a raised hand now. So let's see, I will unmute people one at a time. And then if you want to just introduce yourself and go ahead with your question. So let's see, the username is C.A. Snyder.
Yes, that's me.
Hello, welcome.
Hi. I posted already in the chat, but a couple of the road closures already in the spring, they didn't have the signage put at the locations where you would, the nearest location that you could make a detour around the closure. So you actually got up to the point where the road was closed and had to turn around and backtrack. And
okay, and those were some of our earlier projects?
Yeah, I put the locations into the chat, but I just wanted to raise that concern because I'm sure that everyone that's out on the road doesn't want to have to turn around and backtrack. And that's rather dangerous, so.
Absolutely, yeah, I see it looks like maybe Grass Lake Road, we're doing some limestone resurfacing out there. Okay, yeah, we'll certainly take that feedback back to our crews out there that are setting up the work zone. We do have some rolling operations where it's hard to sign because they're moving. You know, it's a moving operation, but I don't know, Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about that? It looks like it's a unpaved road question in particular.
Grass Lake Road is a primary road, unpaved primary road, and we are resurfacing it with 8 inches of fresh limestone this year. In fact, that project should be completed today. The road isn't closed where there's a detour posted. It is intermittent lane closure depending on the activity. So when the gravel trains, the big gravel trains come in to dump the limestone, there can be a motorist delay waiting for those dump trucks to dump their material, and then for our motor grader to move it around to the point where we can allow the vehicles to safely go around. So you could be sitting there waiting for that operation for 10 minutes. And that certainly can be inconvenient and frustrating, but that road isn't officially closed from Sharon Hollow all the way over to Rank Road, like some other projects would be where we'd have a posted detour.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I'm not sure, I didn't catch your name. CA Snyder, did you have, it looks like you had another question about, I see your question about roundabouts and the WCRC Fix It app. I can answer the WCRC Fix It app, and then Brent or Matt, I'm not sure if you guys want to talk a little bit about pedestrians and bicyclists traveling through roundabouts. But the question is, does the WCRC Fix It app bring up the current projects map on the phone without having to use a browser? So that's a great suggestion. I can adjust some of the buttons at the start of that app to link to the current projects map. I can absolutely do that. I don't think it does that right now, but that's something that we can edit for the construction season on that app. I'm glad you're using it, and we appreciate the feedback on how to make it better. So Brent or Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about pedestrians and roundabouts?
Certainly. Obviously, roundabouts are placed in areas where there is pedestrian movements. Certainly, it's not as straightforward as the walk or don't walk traffic signals, but there is very successful implementation of roundabouts where there are a great deal of pedestrians. Ultimately, both pedestrians and vehicles certainly interact at lower speeds, so that's certainly a benefit of the roundabout. Generally speaking, they are lower speed environments where that are more pedestrian safety wise is a benefit, because when you have higher speeds, you have a greater potential for serious injury accidents. So certainly that low speed environment is good. It is different, and certainly folks need to pay attention, both vehicles and pedestrians, but there are walks, crosswalks and yield areas, and I think they've successfully been implemented. Good example, just variety of instances. This one is particularly in the by the city of Ann Arbor, in right at the intersection of Geddes and Earhart at the Concordia University, where there's a lot of pedestrians. That's a great example of one, if you know the area.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think it's interesting with roundabouts. We've seen they are still a relatively new feature. When we think about roads, I mean, roads have been around we've been around as a road commission for 100 years. Roundabouts have been around. I think the first ones were built in Washtenaw County in the late 2008, 2009. So we're, as a group, everyone's still getting used to it. Absolutely. And we have tried to do a lot of education. We've got actually a lot of information on our website about traveling through roundabouts safely. There is a learning curve, but we do see them performing, and they are safer for all users, including pedestrians. So as Matt said, it is different, but we are finding that they are performing very well, and they're not the right treatment for every intersection. As you can see, we have a variety of new signals going in. We don't just build a roundabout everywhere, but they are a great tool to have, again, in our toolbox when it's appropriate.
I have some experience with some of the earliest ones were built on Campus Parkway as part of the Saline Area Schools campus development, their high school and elementary school in Pittsfield Township. That is a school environment, numerous pedestrians using the road system to and from those facilities during school time, setting aside the pandemic and remote learning. But under normal circumstances, a lot of pedestrians and a lot of motorists. And Campus Parkway being a primary roadway, it's posted 35. And we've seen since 2003, very good success and good positive interaction between motorists and non-motorists at that specific roundabout location. There's 2 roundabouts along that roadway.
Very true. Yes. So those are built under permit, right, Jim? Thank you very much for adding that. So it looks like we got a couple other questions in chat. And again, if you want to raise your hand and ask your question verbally, you can do so by dialing *9 or by clicking the reactions and then the raise hand button, or the participants in the raise hand button. But this question comes from S. Lee, and their question is, are the expenses for some of these projects, I'm assuming for some of our bigger projects, are they coming out of the money that was allocated for the US 12 project? I assume that they're talking about, and please clarify if this is not what you're asking in chat, but I assume they're talking about the money that was received for making improvements to US 12 in Ypsilanti Township. Matt, do you want to, or Cheryl, do you guys want to talk about how that money is? The easy answer is no, but do you want to talk a little bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, certainly. There was $8 million allocated for improvements to US 12 at M17. We entered into agreement with Ypsilanti Charter Township to assist them in facilitating what those improvements were going to be, going through that design process and public engagement and outreach. Ultimately, we also entered into an agreement with MDOT to get the reimbursement for funds expended for that project. We're entering into the construction phase. It's exciting, but any and all costs associated with the project are being reimbursed by MDOT up to that $8 million budget. So only things that are attributable to that project are used for those monies. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, there's a lot of something that I found really interesting when I joined the Road Commission is learning how many different pots of money there are. And there are some like this that are allocated specifically to a project, and there's other that we can allocate to a variety of different projects. But as Matt said, the money that was allocated for US 12, that $8 million, that's invested only in that area that as determined by that project. So we are going to start construction phase, or the contractor starting construction phase soon, which is, as Matt said, very exciting. So let's see. I know that Ms. Snyder had a couple questions here in chat about, keeping our maps updated with current closures and delay info. Again, we are not perfect by that in any means, but we are doing our best and putting things out there on that weekly roadwork schedule. We also share all of our road advisories with Google Maps, with Google. And so they're trying to update that as well. And so we're trying to push that information out there. It is certainly due to all of the different moving parts that we have in coordinating and weather. It's never perfect, but we are doing our best to try to get that information out there, and really appreciate you looking at those resources. And we're always looking for feedback as to how to make them better. Let's see. Oh, good. We did answer the US 12 question. Thank you for clarifying in chat. We appreciate that. So I know, Ms. Snyder, that you have a few more questions about roundabouts, and we'd be happy to talk with you more offline about that if you want to dive into the weeds of roundabouts. If you want to provide your contact information in the chat, we can have one of our roundabout experts reach out to you and talk more about it. We know that they are, some people love them, some people hate them, but we really have found that they are a good treatment and a good tool to have in our toolbox that offer a safe way to traverse through intersections in certain areas. So we're roundabout fans, but we understand that there is a learning curve and not everyone feels the same way that we do. So it looks like we've gotten through most of the questions, or I think all the questions in chat. Is there anybody that would like to ask a question either by raising their hand or asking a question in chat? Oh, thanks, Matt. Matt just shared in the chat that he shared a link to our roundabouts FAQ. So if you want to learn more about roundabouts and all the different efforts we've embarked on to help educate the community about them, that's a great place to start. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. So. All right, it doesn't look like we've got any other questions. We really appreciate your time and joining us today. As I mentioned, and as I showed you on our project map, we've got a lot of information on our website. We're really trying to put that information out ahead of time. We encourage you to subscribe to receive updates from us, either through the weekly roadwork schedule or to receive those individual road advisories about work in your township. And we also would appreciate your feedback on this meeting. We have not done a construction season kickoff like this before. And so we'd love your feedback on that as well, if it's something that's helpful and that we should do again. We've had a lot of great success with virtual project meetings for specific projects. And so we hope that you've been able to join those if you've got a project in your area. But we really encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions. And again, we really appreciate everybody for joining us. Panel, is there anything you'd like to add? Cheryl, anything you'd like to sign off with?
No, just again, thank you for joining us today. We know that your time is precious, and we hope that you found this informational.
Great. We'll take one last call for any questions. Oh, looks like, oh, thank you, John. We appreciate your feedback. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us. We will sign off here. Again, we really encourage you to subscribe to receive updates. And please, join us on Chat with the Road Commission if you want to talk with us more informally on Wednesdays at noon, between noon and 1, or you're welcome to call in and check out one of our virtual board meetings. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks everybody, and please be safe out there, and we'll see a lot of orange cones, but that means that we've got a lot of improvements coming. So thanks everybody.